Alright, in this video I'm going to be drawing this portrait, what appears to be a young Asian woman wearing a rather whimsical hat. I'll be doing this in ballpoint pen, and this reference photo was generated with the help of artificial intelligence. My goal with this drawing is to work on my rendering ability, aka how I shade the portrait, and simplify some of the more complex details in my reference. Per usual, I'm going to begin by shading my darkest values, starting off in the hair and migrating outwards from there. I'm relying on cross-hatching as my method of tone application primarily, but sometimes I'll alter the direction of my strokes to match the flow or the form of what I'm rendering in question. On the left side, I want to keep it as a simple flat shape with some indication of hair strands. On the right side, I want to have the effect of some highlights in the middle, exaggerating a bit the value contrast I see in my reference. As a result, I approach the hair differently on one side versus the other, using curved strokes that intersect from top and bottom, not to mention utilizing my pencil eraser to strip some of that excess ink in the center. And yes, sometimes an eraser can in fact remove ink. Next, I'll shade in the strap, which is composed of three main values. For the sake of variety, I'll hatching the values here to separate it from the hair in design. With the tones in the hair established, I'll be able to better judge the values in the face itself. I like to go over all the contours first with my pen, tweaking the shapes if need be, and erasing the pencil marks put down initially. After that, I target my darkest darks to set the lower limit of the value range. Here, those would be the shadow around the eyes themselves, the nostrils, and the shadow in the upper lip. Patience is key in this moment. You don't want to rush the rendering and make the nose too big in the process or shift the eyes a little too far down. You want to constantly revisit your proportions as you shade and continue to compare each value to the next in a sort of continuum. I'm now moving to the darkest half of the picture, around the chin, left side of the face, and bottom plane of the nose. As I shift into these lighter values, I reduce the amount of pressure I put on the pen in order to avoid getting too dark too quick. Moving up to the mask, I'm going to render this funny looking shape. As I add value to it, I'm imagining it as a sphere, making sure I have my highlights, midtones, and shadow. The rest of this mask is more complicated, so I'd like to take it one section at a time instead of trying to develop a whole at once. I'll identify the regions with darker values and express what I see as simply as possible. A good tip is to squint your eyes when drawing, reason being it removes the details and allows you to better judge or compare values. When you stare deeply into a particular part of the picture, as we are wont to do from time to time, your eyes automatically increase contrast and you can end up having a disjointed light effect. I'm treating the indications of hair on the mask as discrete value shapes with soft edges. I'm also trying to follow the form with my pen strokes to sell the illusion of hair more effectively. Once I lay some marks down, I go back in and add detail to increase the sense of realism. As you can see in the right ear, you don't need to draw every single hair strand or head clump in there. Squint your eyes and describe the main value shapes with your pen, and then add some detail on top, like some flyaway hairs, to get a similar effect. The local value or average value of the mask is fairly light, so we don't want to get carried away as we build up the value layer by layer. Take it slow, look carefully before you act, and ask yourself, are the marks I just made adding or detracting away from the piece? Now I'm ready to move on to the clothing. It's tempting to treat this as an afterthought, but in fact, it contributes meaningfully to the overall aesthetic of this picture. Draw it poorly and it will attract an unnecessary amount of attention. We don't want that. First step is to outline the shapes, and then actually we'll take a quick detour to the next because clearly I can't decide what I want to do. As you values get lighter, intersected by shadow shapes in the pit of the neck and by the left collarbone. Mind you, the shadow shapes in the neck are significantly lighter than the shadow values in the head, so be careful how dark you make them. Subtlety is imperative. There isn't much contrast in the neck. To put differently, the value range is compressed. A common beginner mistake is to exaggerate these differences and throw off the harmony of the entire portrait. we can't have that. Moving on, rendering the kimono is pretty straightforward. It's all pretty dark. My advice to you would be to make sure you highlight the areas that are lighter, i.e. the design on the dress. Keep your pen marks uniform. In other words, don't go from scribbling to cross-hatching to stipling all in the same area. That is no bueno. Lastly, step back from your drawing board often, compare your drawing to the reference from a distance, and fix whatever discrepancies you see. Are the shapes looking incorrect? Are my values not synchronizing? Are my edges too hard or too soft? For example, the edge we have here is much different than the edge over here. Creating a proper hierarchy of edges and value is foundational to a realistic looking portrait. This is often my favorite part of the drawing process. Most of the heavy lifting is done and I can improvise as I see fit, tweaking and modifying what I see in my reference to capture my vision for the piece. I'm sure some of you have been drawing with ballpoint pens for a long time, and for others this might be your first piece or one of your first. I'm curious, let me know in the comment section what you like most about drawing in pen, and for those of you who hate it, what do you like the least? I personally love the speed of the medium and the fact that it makes me a more deliberate artist, because I can't easily erase. I'm a lot more thoughtful about my mark making. The fact that I can't erase is also my least favorite part of the medium. I know, go figure, but I guess it's just how it goes. We are now approaching the end of this tutorial. I'll be releasing a 30-minute, more in-depth version on my Patreon. So if you enjoyed this, you can sign up in the link below for access to 7 more hours of high-quality arts instruction. Thanks for sticking with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.